Hello. In one of our earlier sessions, we have seen briefly different stages of the goal-directed design process. We have had an idea about different tools and techniques and methods which are being used by designers across the entire process. The focus of today's session is the first stage of that process. We call it the research stage. As you can see that we had already said that the research stage is the stage where designers are trying to gather qualitative data. Why qualitative data? Because we are studying or we are trying to understand human beings and not really any other object. So, human beings have very nuanced behavior, like their behavior may change. There is a lot of variation in their behavior, there is a lot of preference in their behavior. And those variations and preferences are result of different implicit and explicit feelings that people are getting at different points of time. And that is why the actions that human beings take and the decisions that they take are far more complex, are far more difficult to understand. And the objective of the design team member at this stage is to understand those behaviors, is to understand those differences, variations. So that is why we are calling it a qualitative research stage. Okay, essentially because we are using qualitative methods and techniques and we are gathering qualitative data. Okay, so there is a lot to observe and there is a lot to ask. So there are times when users are not able to articulate their feelings and their opinions. At that time maybe you should be observing them, and also at times when they are on the work, they are on the go, and also at times when they are doing a particular activity in the field, that observation also comes as a very relevant exercise to do. At times when you can ask them, when you can probe them further, then definitely there are methods to do that. So as I was saying that we are gathering essentially the qualitative data. Now there is another category of data which is the quantitative data. So for example, the age, the number of people in a particular group. So you have a number at the end of this question, how much or how many. But in terms of a detailed understanding of what, how and why, we need to do qualitative study. So to give you an example, please have a look at the screen. What you are seeing on your screen is the web usage analytics. It is a Wikipedia readership recorded early June 2017. So you see that from October 2015 till April 2017, there is a huge variation in the graph. So this is a quantitative data because there are numbers which are responsible for showing you this curve. Okay, so we see that there is a peak arriving just before July 2016, while there is it's a continuous, it's a steep dive back to the bottom in July 2016. Okay, so we know in terms of number that people accessing Wikipedia, numbers suddenly declined in 2016, July of 2016. Okay, and then it's again is a kind of a constant rise with a small decline again in April 2017. So it kind of gives you the number of people who are accessing Wikipedia readership. Okay, so but why there is a sharp decline in that number in July 2018? To kind of know that, we have to do qualitative study. So then we will very precisely, or we will kind of have a very good understanding of why people suddenly in July 2018, why that readership has declined. So by this example, I hope that we have a clear distinction between what is quantitative data and qualitative data, and what is the relevance of qualitative data. Okay, so let us move to the next slide. So there are advantages with qualitative data. So and these advantages are very specifically relevant to the design team, the interaction design team. So for example, the interaction design team has to take decisions about the design of the interactive product all throughout the process. So wouldn't it be better if those decisions are based on real grounded data. Those decisions are based on grounded data, firmly rooted in the user research, firmly rooted in the qualitative data. So, if the design decisions are based on the outcomes of the research, the team has the opportunity to win credibility and authority in the process. So, if your design decisions are more specific, they are based on a certain qualitative data, then as a design team member, you gain authority and credibility across different teams. Now, it also is an opportunity to kind of develop a shared knowledge with respect to user concerns and domain issues. So, if you remember in our earlier sessions, we have seen that the goal directed design process and the entire process of designing interactive artifacts is a very collaborative process. So, we have design team, we have engineering team, we have marketers, management. Okay. So, if you were to develop a shared understanding of user concerns and issues across these different teams, then qualitative data helps you do that. And when it comes to shared understanding, it's not just about, it's an evolving understanding. So, you might have started with certain presumptions about the user groups, and when you are doing this qualitative research, there are times when those presumptions prove to be false. So, you also get a chance to rectify those presumptions, to kind of make them more appropriate to the design of the interactive product. So, we had seen that there are a couple of activities which a design team has to do in the research phase. And what are these activities? Literature review, product prototype and competitive audits, stakeholder interviews, subject matter experts interviews, user and customer interviews, user observation and ethnographic field studies. So, there are like some 6 or 7 of them. So, just to help you memorize them, there is a slide, there is a memory map just below the list. So, you can see that, and I hope that will help you memorize these things. But as an activity, let's try to understand them, so that it's become more natural for us to know them. Okay. So, when it comes to literature review, essentially if you see, an interactive product is often a domain specific design. So, for example, when it comes to like a hospital management system, the domain is healthcare. Okay. And when it comes to, let's say, a financial service management system, the domain is financial services. Okay. So, an interactive product is often a domain specific design. Now, I want you to consider one example throughout this section of literature review to understand different stages of the literature review. That example is that, please consider that you are a member of a design team. The task of the design team is to develop an application which lets people monitor their shares and stocks in real time. Okay. So, you see that the domain is, these are the following domains possible. Online share trade, is one domain. Then dynamic activity performed by people. So, there people are doing activity in real time, they are doing an economic activity in a real time sense. So, that is another constituent. Then exchange of capital or value is involved. So, either you are investing or you are buying or trading basically shares and stocks. So, there is an exchange of capital or value, that involvement is also there. So, as a domain, you see this particular application that you are set out to design as a member of the design team has 3 different domains which might vary in terms of the scope and granularity. Okay. So, let us move to the next part, that as in the literature review process, again you also have to review internal documents. So, what are these? So, for example, product marketing plans. So, how does the management or marketers imagine marketing the online share or stock monitoring application across a potential population? And when I say potential population, I mean customers and users, and we would soon see in the later half of this session that customers and users might not be the same person. Okay. So, product marketing plans, there might be already provided product marketing plans, which, as I am saying, which as we understand, they could be that how does the management or marketers imagine marketing the online share or stock monitoring application across a potential population. So that constitutes the marketing plan. Now there could be some documents about brand strategy also, because the producer of the application, the people who are actually investing their money in terms of designing that application, they may have an prior established brand strategy. It's quite possible, right? Because a single producer may have 4 or 5 different products in the market, and the next product that they are designing or coming out, they might have some preference about brand strategy of that product, because there is already a family of products that they think that the next product also belongs to that family, so that there is a consistency across the brand strategy, or some preferences around the brand strategy might be there. So they might imagine the new application to belong to an existing product family which is following a specific brand strategy. So there might be documents available to you as a design team member. There might also be documents about market research studies, competitive research and customer support data. So consider the same example of an application for share and stock trading, online share and stock trading. The producer in that particular case, consider he might have a separate team which is responsible for gathering data on market research, existing competition, or on customer base. Why this is important to understand? Because see, most of the time there is an opportunity with designers to kind of also start their own design firms, consultancy services. So it is not necessarily a case all the time that you as a design team member or as a designer is involved in the product right from the very beginning. So there might be some work already been done which rests with your producer, and when you get called in for the project, you need to consider those documents. So market research studies, maybe they may be one such document. There might be a separate team who has done a market research study or customer support document who has made that document. It is a good practice to consider those documents as well. Now there might also be a case when you have already available user surveys and usability studies. So for example, one of the typical case when a design team is being called in, consider there is an online e-commerce platform. Now that e-commerce platform, after a certain point of time, producer realized that it is not really attracting that much of traffic, and even if it is attracting traffic, it is not really converting the traffic into business. So he might get an insight from someone who is a usability specialist that there are usability issues. So he had given them a contract to do a usability study, and then this team comes and do just the usability study, and that is where they leave. Now you as a designer gets called in at this point of time, so you might already have a usability review in place. So it's a good practice to consider that document as well. You might also be required to review industry reports. So let's say consider the same example consistently throughout the literature review section of the online trading application, share and stock trading application. So here in this case, maybe the traders union or a government body regulating the entire business, they may have some relevant document. They may have regulations, they may have an account of best practices on the activity of share trading. So you need to consider that as well. Now other accounts of similar businesses and technical interventions may also possibly be there. So in the literature review section, you have to consider quite a lot. You have to consider internal documents, which means there might be marketing documents, customer support data, there might be earlier done usability studies, and there might be internal documents in terms of product placement and the vision of the producer. So you have to consider those documents. You would also be required to review online documents from credible sources. That is very, very important. Credibility of the source is something that you must always verify. So there are always individuals and collectives who are writing informally or formally about the product domain or other relevant issues. Web forums, blogs and news items, community discussion, they all come under documents like this, which is online documents which from credible sources. So you are well past the literature review stage. Now you are on to the next stage, which is product or prototype and its competitive review. Okay. So why this is important? Because it helps you establish the state of the art in the chosen domain. In the same example, how does similar other applications let their users monitor, share or stock trades in real time through online methods? So that is very helpful to know. If you have a repository or if you have created an archive of these different applications which perform almost a similar kind of task, it's good to have a look at it more sincerely, look at that archive. It also helps you understand, what your competitors are doing. Again, with the same example, if the online share or stock trade monitoring application gets released, it will face competition from, so you should know from where all can it face competition, So you should know, who are the potential competitors of the interactive product you are going to design. See, when I said, look into the available applications, similar prototypes, what I meant is that ideally, if possible, you should do something like heuristic evaluation or heuristic review of the existing products and prototypes. It might be a bit costly, like it might cost you in terms of time and money, but the kind of results it can yield, they might be very relevant for your design process. So usability evaluation method, basically heuristic evaluation or heuristic review is a usability evaluation method. We will understand it once again when we are understanding the usability evaluation part. It can be applied early on in the research phase. So this is the earliest possible phase on the entire design process that you are seeing, right? So in this particular phase also, heuristic evaluation or heuristic review can be applied. Now what happens here, that expert judge given designs against a set of heuristics, and you can understand them by general thumb of rule. So heuristic is not the design guideline, it's a general thumb of rule, and we will see what those thumb of rules are. But experts, 3 to 5 will review all the existing designs against these heuristics. So that is what we call heuristic evaluation or heuristic review. It's good to have experts with similar profiles. It just brings a more consistent protocol. So if you are letting people review applications, you should choose experts with similar profiles in terms of experience, in terms of domain and understanding of the interactive product design. So it's good to have somebody who has an expertise in usability as well as in the domain of application. So if you are designing online share or stock trading application, it's good to have somebody as a reviewer who has an experience in usability as well as an experience in online share trading or online trade or online financial services domain. Okay. And as I was saying, that it's good to have 3 to 5 experts. That number is really sufficient. May prove costly at times in terms of time and money. It may prove costly, and you have to account for that time and money when you are making estimates. And these are the heuristics that we were talking about. So Jacob Nielsen in 1995, he gave following 10 heuristics. So visibility of system status. I'm going to read them out. So these are visibility of system status, match between system and the real world, user control and freedom, consistency and standards, error prevention, recognition rather than recall, flexibility and efficiency of use, aesthetic and minimalist design, help users recognize, diagnose and recover from errors, and help and documentation. So these are 10 different heuristics which are used by the experts to review existing products or prototypes in the chosen domain. So what are the advantages of doing that? It establishes relevant insights with respect to interactions and visual design. So as a design team member, after you have done heuristic evaluation, you have a very good sense of interactions prevailing in the available applications or interactive products, and also the user interface. How does the user interface looks, and what are the different elements of that interface? And it also provides you strength and limitations of the existing design solution. So that understanding is also crucial when you are designing interactive product. Current scope of the design, as far as your own design is concerned, it lets you decide current scope of the design in terms of its interaction and other elements of user interface design. Now, once you have done the prototype or product review, competitive review, you come to the next stage, which is stakeholder interview. Okay, so there are two things to understand. So the first one is, what is a stakeholder, or who is a stakeholder rather? A stakeholder is anyone with authority and or responsibility for the product being designed. Okay, so these are the people who have commissioned the project. Okay, so these are the people, they may belong to marketing team, they may belong to management team, they may come from usability team, design team, or from an organization in general, but these are the people who have commissioned the project, and they are the people who are responsible or have the authority for the product being designed. So executive managers, sales, marketing executive, design managers, and some of the people we had taught earlier. So a product must satisfy specific business goals along with user goals. One of the outcomes of a stakeholder interviews is that you get a sense of what stakeholders are imagining about the product. Okay, and then you also get a sense of their idea of user group. Okay, and then you have to kind of understand, the nuances of this, nuances of their perspective. Okay, so ideally should happen before approaching the user, so that you can modify your user research plan. So if you are planning to include a particular user group, but you think out of stakeholder interviews you identify, no, there is a other user group also which is also very relevant, you need to include them also in your user research. It helps you do that, and if you do the opposite, the opportunity is lost. So it's good to do stakeholder interviews before approaching the users. So one-on-one interviews are preferred because why? Maybe across, if you are doing it like a community, like a conference session or something like that, it might be the case that individual opinions or individual views are lost. So to capture those individual views, one-on-one interviews are preferred. Now you could time those interviews. So depending on the time and other resources that you have, typically your interview may last up to an hour. Okay, and then you can time accordingly. If you have less time, you can again shorten the interview. What is important is that after you have analyzed these interviews, if you think that a particular stakeholder has very valuable insights or perspective, you can also conduct a follow-up interview. So there's always a chance to do follow-up interview, and you should also account some time for that in your timeline. So what do we gather? We gather product vision perspectives, right? So different people, different managers of the team give you their vision of the product, and it is a good opportunity for designers to know where lies the coherence, what is the common mass in these all perspectives, in all of these perspectives, and where is the disconnect. So it helps you identify sections where there is a coherence and sections where there is a disconnect. Now it also helps you in budgeting and scheduling. Prioritize different activities and when to stop. It is also very important to know for a member of the design team to know when to stop in a particular activity. So for example, you may not like to go on with literature review for a long time. Okay, so you may want to keep it in a very specified duration of time, and then successively you want to move to the next stage. Now knowing when to stop is also very important in the design process. So if you have stakeholders and if you have known their priorities, if you have a sense of coherence of their goals, you can detail your schedules better. Okay, so that also helps you do that. Technical feasibility and opportunity. So if you have interviewed if you have interviewed engineering team, you would come across details of technical feasibilities and opportunities. Business requirements other than engineering team, if you have interviewed management or marketers team, they would give you a sense of their business requirements and help resolve conflict between business and user needs. So knowing the conflicts is important for you to resolve them. So it's good to know them early on in the design process, and then you can you can do a user research, and then you can think about resolving those conflicts if there are any. Okay. Now, stakeholders' perception of their users, what do they imagine their users are? Okay. So, that also you get a sense of that. Now, what is the designer's intent here? He wants to evolve a common vision for the interactive product. So, he has gathered different perspectives. He knows where the sections of coherence are and where the sections of disconnect. Now, out of this, he has to evolve a common product vision. Okay. And he has to restructure, if needed, the user research plan and gather domain specific knowledge. That is very, very important, and be aware of other aspects which may lie in others' expertise. Okay. So, designers are experts in the process, but they may not be the experts in the domain. So, it is good to know knowledge that lies in other domain, but which is relevant for your design process. Okay, so there is a word of caution, as we have already said, that designers may be expert of the process, but may not be the domain. So, if it is a very complex domain like healthcare, something where legality is involved, you should always consider talking to different stakeholders. Okay, and relying on guesswork with respect to the domain will be detrimental. Okay, so there is a word of caution at the end of subject. After you have finished stakeholder interviews, there comes subject matter interviews. Why do you need to do that? Because designers are required to be an expert of the process, that is the design process, and not of the domain. I mean, there are times when you have no idea of the domain. Okay. So, if you are relying on guesswork, it may lead to detrimental results. Okay. So, your product may fail at the end of the design process. In order to safeguard against these failures, it is good to consider subject matter experts. Now, separate domain experts or authorities in the domain must be interviewed. So, who are these guys? These are subject matter experts. Complexity of the domain in terms of technology, domain specific knowledge, or matters with legal issues. Okay. So, help understand domain specific critical issues, for example, current state, regulations and best practices. So, subject matter experts have a good understanding of these issues. Again, there is a word of caution. Subject matter experts can be expert users themselves, right? So, they may tend to, while they are giving you suggestions on the interactive products that has to be designed, their suggestions might tend to lie. Their suggestion might tend to consider experts user more than any other users. Okay, they may tend towards expert users with respect to the proposed interactive product. Now, also it is important as a design team member that out of the discussions that you had with subject matter experts, you should focus on causative problems leading to a proposed solution. So, what could that be? So, statements like this, if this problem occurs, I am inclined to solve it in the following manner. So, in the following manner, in what manner would a subject matter expert detail you to solve a particular problem is a matter of interest for the design team member. Okay. And the recommendation is that you should involve subject matter experts for sure in a complex domain. Okay. Recommendation is that you should involve subject matter experts essentially when the domain is complex. So, education, healthcare, security and defense, finance, enterprise management, special needs. So, there might be cases when people are doing assessments and therapies. So, there also when there are special needs, when the domain is complex, when the knowledge involved is complex, you must involve subject matter expert. Now, involve them throughout the design process. So, it is good to get them early on in the design process and stay with them, take their feedback while you are designing the interactive product across the different stages. So, seek feedback and verify benchmarks across different stages. Now comes customer interviews. So, is user the customer also? That is an interesting question to ask. What do you think? Have you seen people putting up t-shirts with messages like that? My father is an ATM. I think they might not intend to relate it with a customer versus user discussion, but it is very relevant to our understanding. Okay. So, we see that for example, for products, interactive products which are used by the children. their parents are the customers, not the children, right? So this particular message on the t-shirt is quite relevant in that sense, right? It's the father or it's the mother who is buying, or it's the guardian of the children who are buying for them, okay? So they are the customers and not the children themselves. Similarly, for an enterprise, okay, the people who are managing the enterprise are the customers, okay? So they might ask you for a particular software which lets people schedule their day-to-day activities in an enterprise. Now that software may be required for use by the employees, not by themselves, okay? So they are the customers. They are seeing value of that product for use by a lot of people that they hire in their organization. So that is why customers and users, they are often very different. Customers and users, they are often very different people. And customers have their own needs and requirements, okay? So same example, if your father is buying a vehicle for you, while you might be interested in speed, but your father might be interested in safety. So in that way, users and customers have two different needs and requirements. In the same way, for an enterprise, experience versus maintenance support with computing machines. So while the employees might demand for computing machines which give a better experience, the employer might be in need of computing machines which are good at maintaining, okay? So he may look for computing machines which either require lesser maintenance, or in other case where the maintenance support is there all the time. So the point is that users and customer may have their own needs and requirements. Now customers, they might not be using the product at all. I mean, that might also be possible, but at times when they had to use it, they might use the same product in a completely different way. That might also be the case. So what is a designer's intent when it comes to interviewing customers, okay? So we want to know customers' goal in product purchase, why they are purchasing that product, what is it that they are trying to satisfy by that particular purchase. Their frustration with the existing product, if they have any, okay. So there are people who are interested in redesigned or the latest version of a software or the latest version of an interactive product, So why they are looking for the latest version? Probably there are occasions when they are not really satisfied with the existing product, okay. So their frustration with an existing product, if any, is also that particular knowledge is also important for the interaction designer. Now how do customers decide what to buy? Okay, whether it's a collective purchase or he is motivated by himself as a customer, how does he buy? So what are the conditions that are leading to the purchase of a particular interactive product also? That knowledge is also important for the design team member. Now, are there missing links with respect to the domain in the interactive product? Okay, so for example, the out of customer interviews, you might get insights about that, there are several things which are missing as in terms of features, okay. So an earlier released financial application, financial share and stock trade application might be missing certain features which are emerging to be more and more relevant in that particular domain. Now an earlier application might have missed those features, but the customers may want those features to figure in the next version of the application. So that's where also your knowledge about customers and their needs and requirements is a crucial knowledge as far as the design of interactive product is concerned. So today we have seen certain stages within the research stage, okay. We are still left with how to interview users and how to conduct field observations, and we will consider these in the next session. Thank you.